The first thing I noticed was the mug. It was sitting on my coffee table in a photograph I had never taken. Not a similar mug. Not some AI-generated approximation. My mug. The chipped black one I had owned for years, sitting beside the same stack of unopened mail, underneath the same broken lamp that I had been meaning to replace. And behind it was my living room. My actual living room. The curtains were closed exactly the way I had left them that night. The couch had the same blanket thrown over one arm. Even the tiny scratch on the wooden floor was there. But I hadn't taken the picture. Nobody had. At least, nobody who was supposed to be inside my house. I stared at my phone, trying to convince myself it was just another AI mistake. Some bizarre coincidence. A machine guessing details from information it had somehow picked up online. Then I noticed where the photograph had been taken from. The hallway. The camera was positioned just beyond the doorway, facing directly into my living room. And standing at the edge of the frame was a dark, human-shaped figure. I was alone that night. I know because I had locked every door myself. If you use AI image generators, there's something I need you to check before you go to sleep tonight. Look closely at the images you've created. Because there was one detail in that photograph I didn't understand until much later. And once I did, I stopped wondering who had taken the picture. I started wondering who was still inside my house. 3 hours earlier, I had been doing something completely normal. 3 hours earlier, there was nothing unusual about my night. I was sitting at my desk with cheap takeout beside my keyboard, headphones on, scrolling through Reddit and Discord while messing around with an AI image generator. I wasn't an expert or anything. I was just fascinated by how quickly these things were getting better. People were using AI to create everything imaginable. Fake movie posters, celebrity mashups, dogs wearing business suits. I decided to make something slightly less stupid. I typed a prompt for an abandoned house at night. The image appeared almost instantly. It was actually good. Too good. The house sat alone beneath a cloudy sky, surrounded by dead trees. One upstairs window was glowing faintly, even though I hadn't asked for lights. I stared at it for a few seconds. Then I laughed. Okay, I muttered. That's creepy. So I kept experimenting. A ruined hotel. An empty hospital hallway. A bedroom with a child's toy sitting in the middle of the floor. The usual horror stuff. Then, mostly as a joke, I typed, create a realistic photograph of my house at night. I didn't give the AI my address. I didn't upload a photograph. I hadn't even mentioned where I lived. I expected some random suburban house. Instead, the image loaded. And my smile disappeared. The house in the picture looked familiar. Not vaguely familiar. Mine. The front windows were in the right places. The porch light was broken. Even the crooked flower pot beside the front door was there. I immediately convinced myself it was coincidence. Then my phone buzzed. My friend had seen the image I'd sent him. His message said, "Dude, why does that look like your house?" I laughed it off. I told him AI was probably pulling information from somewhere online. But before I closed the image, I noticed something that didn't belong there. Something I couldn't explain. I almost deleted it. Instead, I saved it. Because I wanted to figure out how the hell an AI had created a picture of my house. The second image was when I stopped laughing. I stared at the first image for maybe 5 minutes before deciding there had to be an explanation. There was always an explanation. Maybe I'd uploaded a photo of my house sometime in the past without remembering. Maybe the AI had scraped an old social media post. Maybe somebody had posted the house online. So I decided to test it. I typed, "Show me the inside of my house from the front door." The image generated. I wish I had closed the program. The perspective was different this time. The camera wasn't outside. It was inside my house. My living room appeared on the screen. The couch. The television. The bookshelf. The same stupid lamp I'd been threatening to throw away for 3 years. Even the coffee mug from the first photograph was sitting on the table. I actually stood up. The refrigerator hummed behind me. A pipe somewhere in the wall clicked. Outside, a car passed on the street. Normal sounds. Things I'd heard 1,000 times before. But suddenly, every sound felt like somebody trying to remind me that I wasn't alone. I walked into the living room and looked around. Everything matched the image. Almost everything. Then I noticed the chair. In the AI photograph, one of the dining chairs was turned toward the hallway. In reality, I'd moved that chair earlier that evening because I'd spilled something on the floor. I remembered doing it. I had moved it myself. There was no photograph of it online. There was no way the AI should have known. I sent the image to my friend. He called immediately. "Okay," he said. "Don't generate another one." "Why?" "Because if it knows what's inside, you need to figure out how." I didn't answer. I should have listened. Instead, I looked back at the prompt box. My hands were shaking, but I typed, "What is standing behind the camera?" For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the screen flickered. The image appeared. It showed my living room again. But this time, the camera was closer to the hallway, and something was standing directly behind it. I couldn't see its face. I couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman. But I recognized one thing immediately. The clothes. The figure was wearing the same black hoodie I was wearing. I slowly looked down at myself, then back at the screen. And for the first time that night, I stopped thinking the AI was generating pictures. I started wondering if it was taking them. I couldn't move. The image was still open on my screen, and I kept zooming in on the figure. There was only an arm and part of a shoulder visible. No face, no hands, just enough of a person to prove that somebody, or something, was standing where the camera should have been. And the hoodie was identical to mine. Same black fabric, same faded logo near the shoulder. Even the small tear near the sleeve was there. I looked down at my own arm. The tear was there too. I immediately got up. I checked the front door. Locked. Back door. Locked. Windows. Locked. I checked the bathroom, bedroom, kitchen, even the stupid closet under the stairs. Nothing. Nobody. The house was exactly as I'd left it. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. Because every time I returned to the computer, that figure was still there. I picked up my phone and took a picture of myself sitting at the desk. Then I compared it to the AI image. The resemblance was almost perfect. Same chair, same posture, same angle of my head, same monitor glowing in front of me. Except there was one difference. My photograph had been taken from the front. The AI photograph had been taken from behind me. I slowly turned around. Nothing. Just the hallway. Dark. I waited. Nothing moved. I turned back toward the screen. The image had changed. I hadn't touched anything. Now the figure seemed closer. I stared at the screen and whispered, "Is this me?" The AI didn't answer with text. Instead, another image appeared. It showed me sitting at my computer. But this photograph was taken from directly behind my chair. I could see the back of my head. I could see the hallway behind me. And at the far end of it, something was standing in the darkness. I pushed my chair away from the desk. That's when a thought hit me. Maybe the AI wasn't generating these images. Maybe it was reconstructing them from information it shouldn't have. I opened my browser and started searching. After almost an hour, I found an obscure post buried inside an old horror forum. Someone had described almost the exact same thing. AI-generated photographs. Rooms they had never photographed. Images taken from impossible angles. Then, buried near the bottom of the thread, someone had written a warning. Never ask it to show you where the camera is. I stared at those words. My stomach dropped. Because that was exactly what I'd asked it. And the AI had already answered. Not with words. With a photograph. A photograph taken from somewhere inside my house. I refreshed the page. 404. I tried again. Nothing. The entire forum thread was gone. Not locked. Not archived. Gone. I checked my browser history, searched cached pages, dug through old screenshots, and even tried Reddit archives. Eventually, I found fragments of the discussion scattered across different pages. And that's when things got worse. Several people claimed they'd experienced the same thing. AI-generated photographs showing bedrooms they'd never photographed. Empty apartments from impossible angles. Locked basements. Security camera perspectives. Even pictures of people standing inside rooms where nobody had been. One comment appeared repeatedly in the archived fragments. It's not generating the room. It's looking at it. Then the account disappeared. No explanation. No final post. Just gone. I sat there staring at my monitor, realizing I'd stumbled into something much bigger than a weird AI glitch. There were references to previous cases scattered across the internet. Different users. Different AI tools. Different countries. But the same pattern. Someone would generate an ordinary image. The AI would somehow know something it shouldn't. Then the camera perspective would move inside. And after that, nobody seemed to know what happened. If you've watched enough horror stories online, you've probably seen those stories about AI recognizing things behind people in photographs. Honestly, that's what I originally thought all of those stories were based on. Some exaggerated internet legend. Something people invented because AI was becoming the perfect villain. I was wrong. Because buried inside one archived screenshot, I found what appeared to be the original poster's final warning. It said, "If it sends you a picture from inside your house, don't ask it who took it." I stared at the sentence. Then I looked at my previous prompt. What is standing behind the camera? I'd already broken the rule. And suddenly I understood why the original post had disappeared. Someone hadn't deleted it. Someone had made sure nobody could find it. I closed the browser. My phone buzzed. Another image had appeared. And that's exactly what I asked next. That I looked at the image for almost a full minute before typing the question I wasn't supposed to ask. Who took this picture? I hit enter. The AI didn't respond with text. Instead, the screen went black for a second. Then another photograph appeared. My hallway. The same hallway I'd just been staring at. At the far end stood the figure. Its face was hidden in shadow. I looked toward the real hallway. Empty. I looked back at the screen. The figure was closer. I hadn't generated another image. I checked the prompt box. Nothing. Then another image appeared. The figure was closer again. Another. Closer. Another. I finally understood what I was looking at. These weren't separate images. They were a sequence. Someone was walking toward the camera. Slowly. Deliberately. I slammed the laptop shut. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then my phone buzzed. A new image had appeared in my gallery. I hadn't touched the computer. The photograph showed my bedroom door. It was slightly open, and the figure was standing behind it. I called my friend. He answered immediately. "What's wrong?" "It's happening again." There was silence. Then I sent him the image. He called me back almost instantly. "Get out of the house." I looked toward the front door. "What about the computer?" "Forget the computer." "But if I leave it?" "Forget it." His voice cracked through the speaker. "Just get outside." I grabbed my keys. Then I heard something. 3 slow knocks. Knock. I froze. Another. Knock. The sound had come from the hallway. My friend was still talking through the phone. "Are you outside?" I couldn't answer. The third knock came. Knock. I slowly turned toward the hallway. Nothing. Just darkness. Then my laptop opened by itself. The screen lit up. A final image appeared. It showed me standing at my desk. My back was turned toward the camera. My hands were resting on the keyboard. The photograph had been taken from the hallway, from the exact position where the figure had been standing. I stared at the image. Then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The photograph wasn't showing what had happened. It was showing what was happening right now. Because in the image, the figure was no longer at the end of the hallway. It was standing directly behind me. And in the real hallway behind me, I heard the floorboards creak. By then, I understood the previous cases weren't random. There were rules. I found them scattered across old screenshots, deleted comments, and fragments of posts that somehow survived. Rule 1. Never ask the AI to show you the camera. I'd already broken that. Rule 2. Never generate more than 3 consecutive images of the same location. I'd generated 4. Rule 3. If the figure appears, leave the room. I was still sitting at my desk. And then there was the 4th rule. Never ask the AI to identify the person. I stared at that one for a long time. Then something finally clicked. These weren't instructions designed to protect people. They were descriptions of what happened after the phenomenon started. Like someone had already made every mistake I was making. I looked toward the hallway. Nothing. My friend was still on the phone. "Listen to me," he said. "Whatever you're doing, stop." I should have listened. Instead, I typed one final question. "What does it want?" The screen flickered. Then an image appeared. My front door. The photograph had been taken from inside the house, facing the entrance. Except the door was open. I looked toward the real front door. It was closed. Locked. Exactly as I'd left it. I stared between the photograph and the door. Then every sound in the house stopped. The refrigerator went silent. The pipes stopped clicking. The traffic outside disappeared. Even my friend's voice suddenly sounded distant through the phone. The entire house had become impossibly quiet. Then, knock. I froze. My friend heard it. "Was that your door?" I couldn't answer. Another knock. Knock. I slowly stood up. The photograph on my screen changed. The door in the image was still open, but now the hallway was visible beyond it, and there was something standing just inside the entrance. I looked toward my actual front door. Still closed. Still locked. Then came a third knock. Knock. But this time, it didn't come from the front door. It came from behind me. I slowly turned toward the hallway. Nothing was there. And that's when I finally understood the worst part. It wasn't that something was standing outside my door. The photograph had already proved something was inside that I slammed the laptop shut and pulled the power cable from the wall. Then I shut the router off. The room went dark. For a few seconds, nothing happened. I actually laughed. Not because anything was funny. It was the kind of laugh you make when you're terrified and your brain desperately wants to pretend you're not. "Okay," I whispered. "That's it." I picked up my phone. A notification appeared. New image saved. My stomach dropped. I opened the gallery. There was a photograph of my house, taken from outside. I hadn't generated it. I hadn't opened the AI. The laptop was unplugged. I deleted the image. Another one appeared. This time, it showed my hallway. Then another. My bedroom. Then another. The angle had changed again. The camera was closer. 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 I stared at the screen, finally understanding something I had been refusing to consider. The AI wasn't doing this. Maybe it never had. It was just the interface. Something else had been using it to communicate with me. I remembered all those arguments online about AI replacing artists, writers, photographers. People were terrified machines would take their jobs. Nobody seemed worried about something much worse. Something using AI to become the perfect witness. My phone vibrated again. Another photograph. This one showed my living room. I could see myself sitting on the couch. Except I wasn't sitting on the couch. I was standing at my desk, holding the phone. I zoomed in. The photograph had been taken from directly behind me. My breathing stopped. There was someone standing in the background, right behind my shoulder. I slowly turned around. Nothing. Just the dark hallway. I looked back at the photograph. The figure was still there. Closer now. I deleted it. Another image appeared immediately. This time, it showed me staring at my phone. I could see my face reflected faintly in the screen. And directly behind me, the figure was standing close enough that its head was almost touching mine. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Because for the first time, I realized something horrifying. The photographs weren't showing me what was happening. They were showing me where to look that I left the house without taking anything except my keys. I didn't drive anywhere specific. I just kept going until the streets looked unfamiliar. Eventually, I stopped at a cheap motel and locked myself inside. For the first time that night, everything felt normal. No images. No notifications. No footsteps. Nothing. I deleted every AI application from my phone, changed my passwords, shut down my accounts, and eventually threw the phone into a trash bin outside. I thought it was over. Then my friend's message came through on my laptop. "Why did you send me this?" Attached was a photograph. My house. Taken from inside. The living room was completely empty, except for someone sitting at my computer. I zoomed in. It was me. Same hoodie. Same posture. Same desk. But I was standing inside a motel room hundreds of miles away. My friend called. I didn't answer. Another photograph arrived. This one showed my motel room. The bed. The desk. The door. And the camera angle was impossible. It was taken from inside the room. From the corner behind me. I stared at the photograph until I noticed something in the darkness beside the door. A person. Just standing there. Watching. Then my laptop screen went black. For a moment, I could see my own reflection. And behind it, another reflection. I finally understood what the AI had been showing me. It wasn't predicting where I would be. It wasn't generating the future. It was showing me something much worse. Wherever I went, someone was already there. And if you're wondering why I'm telling you this now, look at the room behind you. Because I don't think these photographs were ever meant for me. I think they were meant for whoever was watching that I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the motel bed with the curtains closed, staring at the laptop until the screen finally went dark. Before shutting it, I opened one last document and wrote everything down. Every image, every rule, every photograph. Then I added one final warning. If you use AI image generators, don't try this. Don't type your address. Don't upload photographs of your house. And whatever you do, don't ask it what's standing behind you. I posted the story online. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then a comment appeared. The account had no profile picture, no history, and had been created less than a minute earlier. It said, "You forgot the fifth rule." I stared at the screen. I typed, "What fifth rule?" The reply appeared instantly. "Never show the AI this story." My stomach dropped. Because I hadn't. At least, I didn't think I had. Then my laptop made a sound. A new image had appeared. I opened it. It was a photograph of my motel room. The bed. The desk. The curtains. And me, sitting exactly where I was sitting now. But the photograph wasn't taken from across the room. It was taken from directly behind me. I could see the back of my head. I could see my laptop. And reflected in the screen was something standing behind my chair. I slowly turned around. Nothing. Then another notification appeared. Image generated. I looked at the screen. This time, the photograph wasn't of my room. It was of yours. And someone was standing behind you.